Number 1 says 81 to the negative 3/2 power. When you have a negative exponent, what does a negative exponent do to your problem? It gives you the reciprocal. So it's really like it's saying it's 1 over 81 to the 3/2 power. That's what that means. Okay, it's 81 to the 3/2 power. You can technically now do that in your calculator and just figure out what 81 to the 3/2 is. I'll show you that here in a second. But what this means is 1 over 81. Since it's a fractional exponent, that 2 on bottom is the root. It means it's a square root. And then you are taking that number and raising it to the 3rd power. What is the square root of 81? What number multiplies together to get you 81? 9, and then it is 9 cubed. So 9 times 9 times 9. The answer is 1 over 729. All right, if you don't know how to do that, okay, and what I just did looked like magic to you, all you have to do is type that thing into my calculator. If you type in 81 to the negative 3/2 power, it's going to give you a decimal because that's a decimal. Okay, 1 over 729. But if you're smart enough to realize, oh, 81 to the 3/2 power, that's 729. And oh yeah, it's negative. It's going to flip it. It'll tell you it's 1 over 729. Don't let it be harder than that. Questions on number 1. We did number 2 already, so I'm not going to do that one right now. Number 3, all we are doing is multiplying. When you multiply things with the same base, a to the 8th, what exponent is that a right there to? The 1. What do I do with the exponents when I'm multiplying the bases that are the same? You add them. And so my new problem is going to be a to what number? 9, because you're taking 8 plus 1 to get you 9. I've got this b to the 5th right here. Is there anything I can combine with that? So it's b to the 5th. And then I've got a c to the 11th and a c to the 5th. What am I going to do with those two numbers? 11 and 5. Add 16. Done. A to the 9th, b to the 5th, c to the 16th. Number 4 we did together. Number 5, solvent check. Right now I'm trying to get x by itself. It is being cube rooted. What is the opposite of cube rooting something? 3rd power. Raise it to the opposite power. So 3rd root is 3rd power. I'm going to do it to both sides. This gets me x minus 5. Over there I'm taking negative 2 to the 3rd power. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. If I have 3 negatives, is my answer going to be positive or negative? It's going to stay negative. So it is a negative 8 here. It's x minus 5 equals negative 8. All I need to do here then is add 5. Add 5. That would cancel. Negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3. There is my answer. If you were to take negative 3 and plug it back in, if you were to take negative 3 and plug it back in there for x, it would work. Okay? It would not be an extraneous solution. If you plugged in negative 3, you'd get negative 8. Cube rooted is negative 2. Questions on 5. We did 6 together. 7, 8, and 9 are all kind of the same. It's just function notation. Number 7, you are adding the two things. Write down f. 5x squared plus 3x minus 7. Put a plus sign in between them. And then write down g. X minus 8. I'm just adding, so all I'm doing is combining like terms. 5x squared. And then I've got 3x and a 1x gets me 4x. And then I've got negative 7 minus 8 more is negative 15. Done. It's just combining like terms, f plus g. Don't make it harder than that. It literally tells you everything you need to do. Write down f, write down g, add them together. Questions on 7. Number 8 says f What does that sign in the middle mean? Am I plugging something into the other one, or am I multiplying? I'm multiplying. It's a closed dot. Closed dot means multiply. So all I'm doing is I'm taking 6x to the 3/5 times that one, 4x to the 2/9. I am multiplying. So I can always multiply numbers together. I am taking 6 times 4, which gets me 24. That's going to be the number that goes with it. 6 times 4 is 24. Then I need to figure out what I get when I multiply these two things together. X to the 3/5 times x to the 2/9. I am multiplying things with exponents. What do I do with the exponents when I am multiplying them together? I am adding. So I need to go over to the side here, or anywhere, I don't care where, but I need to figure out what do I get when I take 3/5 plus 2/9. I am adding those exponents together. Can I add 3/5 plus 2/9 right now? I got to get common denominators. So you can always just make it 45. That's easy enough. I'm going to multiply 5 times 9 to get 45. Well, if I get this one to be a 5, I multiplied it by 9, so I'm going to multiply the top by 9 to get 27. If I take 9 to get 45, I had to multiply it by 5. So I'm going to take 2 times 5 to get 10. I'm going to add, so when I add, the denominators stay the same. And I'm just going to take 27 plus 10, gets me 37. Questions on 8. Last one is an easy one. We've done it in pretty much the last 3 chapters. It might just look a little bit different. On number 8 or number 9, I'm taking f of x minus g of x. So I'm going to write down f of x squared plus 5 minus. So I'm going to put a minus sign in the middle. G of x. So I'm going to write down g of x, 2x minus 8. If you write that, though, it is going to be wrong. I am subtracting more than one thing. So when I subtract more than one thing, what do I need to do with that second part? It needs to be inside of parentheses, because what I'm subtracting that whole thing. And so what I really have to do here is I need to distribute that negative sign to both parts. X squared plus 5 minus 2x, and that's going to become plus 8 because I'm distributing that negative through. It's going to change the sign. My final answer here is going to be x squared minus 2x, and then I'm going to take 5 plus 8 to get me 13. On number 10, we have AB over AB, and I'm dividing. What do I do with the exponents when I'm dividing the same bases? I subtract the exponents. So I'm going to look at the A's, and I'm going to subtract those two. So I'm going to take 5/6 minus 1/2. In order to subtract exponents like 5/6 minus 1/2, I need to have the same denominator. I can't just take 5/6 minus 1/2. So I rewrote both sides to be, or denominators to be a base of 6. So if I multiplied that by 3, I multiplied the top by 3. What do I do to subtract? That's an awful question. I just go straight across. 5/6 minus 3/6 would get me 2/6. Where was the A? Where were there more A's? Were there more A's on top or on bottom? On top, because it was 5/6 compared to 3/6. So it's going to be A to the 2/6, which is 1/3. That goes on top. Same thing with my B's. My B's here are 7/2 and 2. So 7/2 minus 2, which is like 2 over 1. I had to get a common denominator, so I multiplied by 2 on top and bottom. 7/2 minus 4/2 will get me B to the 3/2 on top, because there were more B's on top. I'm subtracting exponents. Questions on that one? Next one says the square root of 16 x to the 6th. What is the square root of 16? And then I'm taking x to the 16th power, and it's square rooted. So square rooted is like having that exponent being divided by 2, because whatever your root is the number that goes on bottom. So if it said 16 over 2, I can reduce that to get me 4x to the 8th power. Okay, remember, whatever your root number is, you're just dividing by that in your exponent. So it was 16 divided by 2 to get me 4x to the 8th. The next one says 125 to the 1/3 power. It means what number could you multiply together 3 times to get your 125? That one's easy. It's just 5. If you can't do that, it's the same thing as this, 125 to the 3rd root, or you can just type it into your calculator. 125 to the 1/3 power. 5. Next one. I'm raising that thing to the exponent. So I need to take both parts and raise it to that exponent. So I'm taking m to the 8th to the 3/2 and n to the 12th times 3/2. I am multiplying exponents again. I'm raising it to another power, so I'm multiplying them together. So I'm going to take 8 over 1 times 3/2 and 12 over 1 times 3/2. They're fractions, so I can just multiply straight across. 8 times 3 is 24 over 2, which gets me 12. So that m is going to be to the 12th power. On bottom, I'm taking 12 over 1 times 3/2, so I can multiply straight across. 12 times 3 is 36 over 2. 36 over 2 is 18. So it's n to the 18th power on bottom. There's my answer. I'm just taking the exponent times 3/2. Questions on that one? A few more. Check for extraneous solutions and solve. All we're doing is PEMDAS in reverse. I'm subtracting 5. That cancels. Square root of 2x minus 3 equals a negative 3. To finish, I would get rid of the square root, so I would square both sides. Negative 3 squared would get me 9. Add 3. 2x is 12. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X is going to be 6. It says we need to check for extraneous solutions. If I plug 6 back in, will that work here? Let's check. 2 times 6 is 12. Minus 3. That'd be the square root of 9, which would get me 3 plus 5. Is 3 plus 5 equal to 2? No, so this one doesn't work. This is an extraneous solution. So there's really no solution to this problem. The way you can tell that, remember, if in your problem you ever get a square root is equal to a negative number. Square roots can't be equal to negative numbers. So I knew right there that there wasn't going to be a solution to this problem. This was going to be an extraneous solution. It wasn't going to work. If you get a square root equal to a negative like we did right there, that number really wasn't going to work when I plugged it back in. You can always just plug it back in as well. Number 15, I've got a 1/2 power. What do I do to get rid of a 1/2 power? Raise it to the reciprocal, so I'm going to raise it to the 2nd power. Over here it cancels. X minus 4. Over there I square it. 7 squared gets me 49 plus 4 plus 4. X is 53. Just square both sides and solve. I know I'm going quick. I'm trying to get them all in before we get done here. Number 16 and 17 are both the 2 easiest problems on this paper. Add 8, x squared is 36. What would I do next? How many answers am I going to get on this problem? There should be 2. X is equal to plus or minus 6. Evaluate 49 to the 1/2 power. What is the same thing as 1/2 power? Nope, not the 2nd. It's the square root of 49. That's what that means. 49 to the 1/2 power is 7. You need plus or minus on this one because it was x is equal to a number. Okay, when we square root, when we have an x equals problem, it's a plus or minus. When we just evaluate, it's only the positive version. That's really annoying but true. Number 18, we're doing f of g of x. Since g is on the inside, I'm taking g and I'm plugging it into the f equation. So that 2x plus 7 goes in for x. So it's going to be 3 times 2x plus 7 plus 1. At this point, all I want to do is simplify. So I'm going to distribute 6x plus 21 plus 1. And then I'm going to combine like terms. 21 plus 1 is 22. 6x plus 22 is my answer there. On the last one, it is talking about, what's it say? I don't want to zoom out. A minivan is traveling down an icy road. If S is the speed in miles per hour and T is time in seconds, use that equation to figure out how long it'll take the van to stop if it's going 40 miles per hour. I plug 40 miles per hour in, and then I solve. Divide both sides by 5. 8 equals the square root of t plus 52. I'm going to square both sides to get rid of the square root. And then to finish, subtract 52. Subtract 52. T is 12.